Yeah.
For everybody that's in the audience, we make sure you sign on the sign-in sheet, please. First open. You need. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna start the meeting, guys. Lisa. Just that, I didn't, the mic is still the one that was on there. You need to switch it to battery, okay. I didn't. Okay. Leroy, you need to bring that microphone down. All right, so I'm calling the meeting to order, and Leroy, I have to tell everybody that for the first time in a year and a half, I actually arranged for someone who was gonna give the opening prayer before the meeting started. So Leroy agreed to do the prayer. So Leroy.
Our dear Father in heaven, we bow our heads in gratitude to thee for this wonderful nation we live in, for the freedoms we enjoy, and for this town and the beauties of the surrounding area. We're grateful for the citizens here that are so concerned about the town and its welfare. We pray, dear Father in heaven, that thy spirit will be in this meeting, spirit of love, and understanding, and empathy for one another. We pray for this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Okay, and the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Oh, you wanted to, you wanted it on BTOC, not version. I will give you the, sharing this. Hold on, everybody, just trying to figure out why this is coming in my screen sharing is paused from its not closed. Say what? Okay. What do you like this? password for you guys. All right, for BTOC. We got a new brand new network and we got a new password. Everybody will write it down and I'll pass it around. Okay, so in the meantime, are there any conflicts of interest? Does anyone have a conflict of interest to declare? I'll start with Jean. No. Leroy?
No.
Me? No. Chris, Misty? No. Paul?
No.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes of the July 18th, last month's town council meeting and approval of the checks and invoices for July 2023. Anybody have any suggestions? Any proposals? No visuals, Stephen. Paul?
I've already added my changes to the minute.
Okay, I have not yet, but Crystal, I will send mine over to you. Okay. So, any suggestions for any changes from you guys? Okay,
There's no other changes than the ones that I've noted. I move that we approve the consent agenda approval of minutes from July 18th, 2023 town council meeting approval of checks and invoices for July of 2023.
any second? Second. All in favor? Okay, all right, we'll move on to open forum. Last month, we had in the past, we've had council comments before open forum, but Paul suggested that we flip the two, so I did. So we will now move on to open forum. So you indicated that you had something you wanted to say. Okay, go for it.
I'm Mike Bailey,
I'm sorry, what's your name?
Mike Bailey, BHLING. And the
Okay.
reason I'm speaking today is I'm speaking for the wildlife in essence and the impact that our human activities have on the river. And what I'm recommending is we already have management plans that deal with environmental health and cyanobacteria. We already have management plans that address endangered and listed species. But do we really have any documentation in this area to show what impacts are occurring from either one of those two? We need to work with Springdale, Rockville, and Virgin, and our wildlife regulators, Fish and Wildlife Service or Division of Wildlife Resources, and the environmental health to come up with the needed plans and updates that we currently need. So that you as a town body can make the appropriate decision when you're dealing with tubers, for example, on how many tubing trips will you allow a day? Well, you can't make that kind of decision without data, without studies that show what kind of impacts those are having on our river. And so I would ask you to consider working with the other towns, because we have this problem in Rockville, we have this problem in Springdale, and not only here. So it's a universal problem from the inlet clear up in Park. And so it needs to be addressed by everybody so that the river can stay healthy and not be degraded. Thank you.
Anyone else? Cameron?
Sorry, just a minute. I just wanted to recognize that the old church was getting done, and I think a lot of the work on there has been really exceptional and good. I was just disappointed to see the metal roof going on there. My remembrance of the discussion in this meeting was that extra funds have been allocated so that a shake roof could be put back on the building to match what was already there before, to keep it more in its historical form. That's my only comment. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, before, let's move on then to, if no one else has anything for open forum, let's move on to council comments. So, I did have one thing that I wanted, a couple of things I wanted to say, and then I'll move on, Paul, because I think you had something you wanted to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is just let you guys, anyone who doesn't know, the update on the, traffic accident. Update on the traffic accident for now. What happened is someone was driving westbound on SR9, and this was early in the morning. They were coming back from working the night shift at a hotel in Springdale, and they fell asleep at the wheel, and they crossed over into the other lane and had the head-on collision. The guy driving the truck, because he was asleep, had fallen asleep, had almost no injuries. The other people, 4 people in the other car, as most of you know, the one person went through the windshield, and that person got life flighted to the hospital. The other 3 were taken by ambulance, and that's the update on the traffic accident. So they fell asleep at the wheel. I thought I would show everyone, we have a new ballot box that is installed right in front of the town hall over here. And I have a picture to show everyone. The people online will not be able to see it right now because when I share my screen, it is not sharing to the people that are watching online for some reason. I'm going to fix it. But here is a picture of what our ballot box looks like for those of you who are here. That is our new ballot box that's been installed right outside the town hall. We have a new public works building that we ordered that was just received yesterday. And that is over by the fire station, and that's been put in place, and we still have work to do on it, but at least we finally have a place where the, our public works guys now have a place to work out of instead of just one tiny little desk that was in our main room in the town hall. So now they have their own office, when we get it done up, which should be another month or 2, and then it'll be ready for them to use. And that's all I really had to talk about. So Paul, and while you're working, I'll see if I can fix this problem why people can't see my share screen online.
And thank you. The reason I wanted, council member comments after the public hearing, and it's after the public comments. It's half a dozen of the other is, I know sometimes the public likes to comment after we comment, but we like to comment on what the public comments on. So I thought maybe flipping it would have an effect that if we have comments, we can address any things or any of the concerns brought up by the citizens and do it during our comments. Plus it also allows somebody to come in and comment and then leave and not have to sit through our comments if they don't want to. Did I hear? Yeah. I have three items to comment on. As you know, we established that program to assist individuals that are in financial need for our water accounts. And Crystal's done a wonderful job. We've had 2 applications presented to us. Now, I'm not going to talk about particular applications because even I don't even know who they are, just based on the account numbers. But I don't want to discuss the fact because I don't want somebody else to figure out who they are by the fact. But we've had 2 applications, and Crystal's done a wonderful job in making sure the person creates a plan to bring the account up to current with us providing the financial assistance out of that account. And also, more importantly, creating a condition that they get on express payment. So I don't know if you want to, if you want anything to add into your comments again, but the program seems to be working. We'll keep monitoring as it goes on. I'm seeing a couple changes we need to make now But I'll wait till maybe next year and present the amendments to address some of the issues concerning what I'm seeing. Last week, we did a resolution, Pocketville Park. And one of the things we were gonna come back is create a system for the town people to name the park again, and I hope we create that process at the next work session. But since the meeting, I learned that the town residents had already voted on the name. And what I gathered from what I could tell from those newsletters was that the town council submitted a request for potential names, the names came in, the town council then picked the top three. I don't know if they picked the top three based on number of votes, or they picked the top three based on what they wanted as the names, then the public voted and they voted on Pocketville Park. So when we do this procedure this time, I hope we do it one of two ways. One is we take out the council's decision in that and let the public pick the top names and the top three vote getters kind of as primary. We go to a regular vote for the top three, or we do some type of weighted vote on it. Something to think about for the next meeting. And then the third item is in your packet is a letter from Bill Foster, who's the chair, he's mayor of Leeds. He's also the chair of the Greater Plain Valley Light District Board. And first,
In your packet, sorry,
it's in your packet.
it's in there, we put a copy in everyone's folder. Bill Foster's letter. Did you print it out? I did.
What,
Our Wi-Fi went down today.
okay, I will make sure that you get a copy.
I'll go with the copy. I put this copy up here for everyone to look at in case you want to discuss it further. I put a copy here.
It's a very simple discussion. It's a 3-page letter, so we'll make sure Chris will get you the copies of it. The town of Hurricane put on the ballot or on their town council meeting resolution. In essence, the resolution was a criticism of the potential vote on House Bill for Senate Bill 392. But the main purpose of that resolution was really to get at the makeup of the board. I know the town of Hurricane and some of the members of that council have been upset with the fact that they only get one vote. And each of the entities each get one vote. And they've attempted one other time to try to get it based upon population, so they have more representation on the board. This is a letter of Bill well written in response to that. I'm also told that vote at the Hurricane council meeting, not all the members were there, and would have probably changed if all the members happened to be there. But Hurricane, even though they make up 77% of the population of the district, they receive 80% of the services. And they receive, compared to Springdale, Virgin, Kolob area, Leeds, they receive the best time response compared to the other entities. So they're not being underserved by their representation one vote per each. If they were to change that, that would really diminish our vote for our community. So I just wanted to make sure you got a copy of that letter and you've seen what was said by the mayor Paul there. Well,
Yes, I put the. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
it's a
I was looking
three-page
at the
letter.
chats from people, sorry. I can share my screen here, and I played with this and did multiple Zoom meetings and was able to share the screen. And now it's not sharing with the people that are watching online. And I did many tests of this and put it fine. And I have no idea why it's not sharing the screen.
I got a question. Oh, this is something that might be worthwhile for our town to. We should express disapproval of such a change.
Maybe at some point, if it becomes necessary, I don't think it's gonna become necessary, take a look and read closely. Bill's letter, and let me talk with Bill and Joe and see if they think that's something that would be beneficial coming out of us. I really think after this letter, I don't think it's gonna go much further. And like I said, when the vote came up, it was a two, my understanding, I wasn't there, but I heard it was a 2-2 vote. And one of the other members, and it was broken in by Mayor Billings, and one of the other members that would have been there would have probably voted against it. So I don't know if it's necessary, but it's something that I think as a council and as a community, we need to be aware of that. Hurricane, portion of Hurricane's leadership there is upset with the current makeup of the board, only because they want to be able to control more of the resources related to the fire district. But I'll get back with you on that. That's a good point. I'll get back with you.
I don't agree with what they did. I agree with what Bill Hofter says.
That's
for
what I'm
fire.
saying. So,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think the changes to population, that's pretty bad. That's what I'm saying, is it benefit for the town, but issue a letter to the commission saying, hey, we disagree.
I was wondering the same thing. I was wondering if we should do that too.
I will hear.
Okay.
I'll get hold of Bill and Joel and let you know whether they think it would be beneficial or not. Or if the data show, I hate to be the data board if it's not gonna go anywhere.
Okay, so the next, anyone else with commissioner comments? Council comments, sorry.
I just like to make a comment on the financials. It seems that the state, won't let a town have a third party like our CPA get in to see what the revenue is from taxes and from transit. So our financial statement will not show any income this month until we have access to that. They let us, the mayor, the treasurer, and the town clerk have access to that information. And we're in the process of having that taken care of. The mayor has been authorized just recently, and I submitted the necessary forms to be authorized to do that, and I think
I'll take care of Crystal
I
tomorrow.
think Crystal needs to do the same, and once all three of us are in, then we'll have access to it. I can report that our expenses, which will be general expenses, are in line with our budget. And I'm quite sure that the income is gonna come in from the figures that we have experienced in the past for enough to cover those expenses. Probably more. The only other thing I would like to comment on is, those of you that feel so inclined, if you could donate money to this fund for people that, for one reason or another, can't meet their water bill, to help them out, it would be really helpful. In the climate we're in now economically. Other than that, I would say what Paul had to say, we do not know who it is. The three of us just vote on that. We just know the circumstances we're under. And it's nice to know that there is funds in that account that we can help these people out when they're in dire need. That's all I need here.
Anyone else? No, Jean? No, Ms. Stephen? All right. I apologize to all of the people who are watching online. We have quite a lot of people that are watching online. And I apologize. I do not know why my screen share is not working when it worked several times yesterday and all over the weekend when I practiced with this. And no idea why it's not sharing. So I apologize to you guys because we're about to get to the presentation by Zach Lindstrom, which is why everyone's here. The real reason everyone is here. So Zach, come on up, do your presentation, please, and I will send to, the rest of the people that are watching online, I will forward them your slideshow. It's okay with you.
Great.
Okay. All right, so hold on, hand me that.
That's my agenda.
Okay, I'll send it back. You have the little clicker I gave you? Okay, all right, go for it.
Appreciate being invited to come up here. I was looking forward to opportunities to come and talk to the cities and answer questions, because there's so much information out there, a lot of misinformation. And so as I go through this, I really hope you just feel free to stop me, ask a lot of questions. I know your mayor emailed me a couple additional questions that necessarily aren't in this presentation, but I'd also be happy to answer as we go through this. So the big thing is that we're calling it the 20-year water supply plan. And so the last period of time, the water district has focused a lot on the Lake Bell pipeline. And we were hoping to have that under construction. Well, due to the 20-year drought, recent political things have been going on, and the fact that Lake Powell is dropped so much, it's not going to go forward anytime soon. And so basically what we did is we got together as a team. We started just pulling everything off the shelf. So things that the district may have looked at 20 years ago, looked at it and said at that time it wasn't economically feasible. We really evaluated everything to figure out where we're going to come up with water. The one thing I do want to say is it really is the cities are in control of this whole process. And so as a district, I don't do anything to promote growth, but I don't do anything to discourage growth. I simply respond to what the cities requested me to do. So if the cities came back and said, hey, we want to slow growth down, I'll do that. But if they say we want to increase it, I'll do that too. But we came up with this 20-year plan based on what the information was fed to us by the cities about what they want to do and how they want to grow. Let's see.
It'll take a couple of tries. All right, point at my computer. All right.
Today.
Absolutely nothing wants to work, does it?
We have it all.
Come on, guys. There we go.
So why we came up with 20 years is we reached out to the industry and talked to banks. We talked to major companies that issue bonds for government bonds or even commercial bonds. We also reached out to the building community and we asked, what time period do you need to feel secure? And 20 years was kind of a number that they look forward to. And so, in fact, we're working with a company out of San Francisco, and they want to come and look at Washington County and Wash specifically, because they're going to be making recommendations on what the rate should be in this area for municipal bonds, or even as simple as a home loan can be affected by this. I hope this is working now. Did you mess that, or was that my clicking?
I thought it was you, but I will
Okay.
I will advance it.
So one of the things that we did is we have what's called the regional water supply agreement, and that was where we've actually gone out and signed specific contracts. Sometimes it's called the pooling agreement. Now, Virgin is not a part of the regional water supply agreement. We simply just have a flat contract with you that allows so many connections. Where the other cities have kind of pulled all the resources together. And so that's Tokerville, Laverton, Hurricane, St. George, Washington, Santa Clara, and Ivans. And so pretty much within that system, we're able to move water to any of those communities. They're all in the same car. And so if one city runs out of water, they all run out of water, essentially the same thing. We also, the regional water supply agreement requires those cities to get together and have discussions about water. There's a mechanism there to talk about water conservation, and we're even working with the state now to even have it more combined. So right now, the cities are required to submit reports to the state, and instead of each city submitting certain reports to the state, the district's just taking on that responsibility and will submit one regional report together. Because pretty much all the new growth that's occurring anywhere in those cities I just named, 100% of that water is coming from the water district. And so it just kind of makes sense for us to go do that. But we do look at the city's water use very closely. We get their data, we analyze that, and we give suggestions, and that is just actually going to grow more as the scarcity of water goes. So I think you're the one that advanced it, so I'll just have to ask you.
Okay,
So what we have come up with our new water supply is we're gonna focus on these 5 items. Some that we've been doing for years and years, like agriculture conversion, that's been going on for 100 years. But some of it, like the reuse water is something that's gonna be new and developing it. So, next slide. So with water conservation, we're doing 2 things. So right now, we're requiring new homes to be built in those cities to come on at a very, very low standard. Pretty much these homes are gonna be required to be the most water efficient homes within the state of Utah, if not the western United States. We're doing that by a couple of ways. First of all, offering a carrot and stick. The carrot is those homes will be coming on at a lower use. And so we had agreed to charge them a lower impact fee, almost about $7,000 less of an impact fee than the old standard. But the stick is they're going to get a certain allotment of water each month, and if they go over that allotment, once they hit a certain threshold, and it varies throughout the year, there will be substantial penalties to that. And so the first initial amount of water is about $3 to $4 a thousand gallons, but once they hit that threshold, it essentially goes to $14. And so it's just not doubling the price, it's almost tripling the price very quickly to make sure we keep them under that amount of that we kind of agree with. The second water conservation that we're talking about is our existing residents. Now, I want to make this clear, if there's a home that is grass or whatever going on, nobody's going to mandate they change anything. But we're offering a lot of incentives. So one of the things that we're offering is grass conversion. So people can come to the district. We will offer them $2 a square foot to convert turf or grass into desert-friendly landscaping. That, we rolled it out just this spring, and it's been a phenomenal success. We've had 1,400 applicants to that program already. And so this chart is kind of showing that we're going to be working with our existing residents that are using a lot of water and help them conserve over the next several years. And from everything we're seeing, that is happening very quickly. So we're really proud of that, and we're going to be expanding that. Now, the city of Virgin could tap into that grass rebate program if you wanted, or Springdale, and I don't know if that's Rockville. So any municipality can qualify for that. However, to qualify for that, for your residents to qualify for that, they have to adopt the efficiency standards that the district and the state has come up with. And so I'd be happy to share those, but pretty much we really focus on outside landscaping, making sure that the new homes, not the old homes, the new homes that are being installed have to follow those, and your city council passed that, and your residents could qualify for that. And so if you want to consider, I'd be happy to send some people here to talk to you about. That's our goal is everybody, so you just have to adopt those efficiency standards. Next slide. So the reuse system, this is where we're going to take our sewer water and start reutilizing it and recycling it. So right now we have 3 large water treatment plants, one's being built, but 2 large ones, 1 small one. And this is our sewer water. This is what we've been flushing down the toilets or going down the drain. We have been using a little bit of that water in the past where we'll treat it to a certain level and then reutilize it. But we're going to get very, very, very aggressive with this. And so we want to take every single sewer water, treat that water, and then put it back into the system.
oops, sorry,
Oh, you're fine.
okay,
This is a good slide too for that. And so what we're planning to do is, there's a couple different things here, is sometimes people refer to this as toilet to tap, where you take it, you treat it, and then you put it in drinking water. We're not proposing that. There's a lot of costs associated with that. It is safe technology, but it's astronomically expensive to get it to be safe water. So what we're proposing to do is take this treated sewer water and offset that water with 2 ways. And so we do have ag in the communities. And so we're working with those farmers to say, we're going to give you this reuse water, and the water that you have traditionally been using, we're going to start drinking it. The farmers like this with our initial discussion, because right now, I'll use Hurricane Canal Company. In the middle of the winter, like a rainstorm will come down and turn their water into the most big, muddy water you could ever, you guys used to this. And it plugs up their system and it ruins, they can't use water efficient heads because it plugs them all up. what we're gonna do is swap them out now, and they're gonna get crystal clear water at a very set pressure year round. It won't be variable on the river. But that river water that they have been using, we're gonna start putting in the Savin Hollow well and treating that water and drinking it. Also, we have a couple golf courses that are using that higher quality water, we'll offset it with this reuse water. And also, the district, we run the Virgin River program, and so we spend a lot of time and effort making sure our fish and anything along the river from a habitat standpoint is happy. And so we have certain flow requirements with that. And so sometimes in the middle of the year, we'll actually take water out of our reservoirs and dump it right back into the river to keep the fish happy. And so what we'll do is instead of using that high quality drinking water, we'll start using the reuse water that the fish don't mind at all. In fact, for fish garden, we'll just pump it up to the head of the river and then let it flow down. And so there's a lot of things that we can do, but to build it's going to be expensive and require a lot of facilities. Now I'm just cruising along, so if you have questions about any of this, just go ahead and stop me. This is kind of just your very traditional drill wells, build a dam, and that's what we're going to do. So there's a few areas in the county that we feel that we can tap into, or we've been talking about for a while. And so this kind of shows just those additional projects. Cove Reservoir is actually located up in Kane County, and we're working with Kane County on that project. But since the Cove Reservoir flows to this area, if we work with them, we'll be getting additional water. Slide. This is kind of unique. Right now, all the cities have their own water rights. So part of the regional water supply agreement requires that the city uses their water first. And so, like Washington City, they have so many water rights, and they have to use that. And usually, and what the cities have been doing is they've taken those and used their water rights, just drilling a simple well and pumping out of there. We have multiple groundwater areas. So we have one of the things that makes our county beautiful is our unique topography. But underneath, that means we have multiple different aquifers that are going on. So a perfect example is Snow Canyon. If you've ever been up Snow Canyon, that Snow Canyon basin, there's just drinking wells all the way up Snow Canyon. And how those aquifers have been handled in the past is the operator just kind of goes out, flips on a switch, they pump till the water traps down, and then just turn it off and leave it for maybe a couple of weeks, and then come back and put it on. And so we're going to go in and do a detailed study on each of the aquifers in our county that we're pulling drinking water from, and see how we can optimize those aquifers. Maybe pump them a little bit harder in the spring, let them recharge a little bit more in the winter months. And our initial estimates say that we can probably get about 6,000 acre feet of water out of that, but we're using only 3,000 conservative number. So just kind of look at what we have and how we can use it a little bit more efficiently. And then this is just your typical, you have a farmer, he sells that land to a developer, and instead of growing alfalfa, they're going to grow homes, and we're going to take a portion of that water and start drinking that water. The difficult thing with this is the 3,000 acre feet of water there, this is high quality water. And so this is not necessarily like Washington Hills where the water is lower quality. This has to be a little bit higher quality water that we're going to go out. And I need to emphasize that the district has a very strict policy that we work with farmers. And so if you have an existing farmer, we will do everything we can to help that farmer continue farming. In fact, right now the district subsidize a lot of farmers to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to allow them to continue the farming. But once that farm is sold to a developer, all bets are off. And we're not going to subsidize the developer, and we need to get that water. And so this will come from farmers that are selling out to a developer, and then we will purchase those water rights to get that additional water. So this is the plan, and let me click one more. I think maybe it's just not showing. Okay, go back. There's supposed to be a line there, but it's not showing up. I'm not sure why.
I'm trying to figure out how to go backward.
That was an important slide. So that previous slide with all those pictures, there you go. So when we start combining all those things and how we're going to come up with water, I wish it was showing it, but there's a dashed line, and that dashed line represents demand. So if the cities came to me right now and said, Zach, we're not going to issue any more building permits, the line would have been flat because there would be no additional demand. However, that line, the slope of that line would be based upon how fast we're growing and how much water these new users are connecting.
Can you use the little laser pointer that's on that thing to
Oh.
show us where the line would be?
Yeah, that's working.
Okay. Is that not?
Yeah, there we go. So the slope of that line follows this very closely, and then we'll have some larger projects come on. The slope of that line would go about right there, so it ends about right there, and it just skirts all this. So the next 10 years is very, very tricky, because we're really pushing the edge of our system. The state has very strict requirements that says that you can't build more homes than your system can provide. And that's what we're very nervous about. And so I'm working very closely with the Division of Drinking Water, Utah Water Resources and Water Rights to make sure they know exactly where we're at and how we're operating. And they're good with the plan, and it's a solid plan, but the one big variable on this is how the cities respond to it. And so part of that regional water supply agreement, we're coming out with some pretty aggressive things saying, if you want to still work together, you're going to have to follow certain requirements. And if you don't follow those requirements, then this whole system crashes. And I can't guarantee a 20-year plan anymore. It might turn into a 10-year plan if certain things happen. So they're having a lot of discussions about that. And how that is coming out. I'll be honest, the district is kind of taking an aggressive approach in the sense that we have come out with water efficiency standards. Yeah.
I do have one question. You mentioned that the state's got a plan that you've got to meet or else no more building permitted for housing. What about commercial property? Is that within that plan too?
Yes.
Okay, so it's both
Yeah.
residential and commercial.
Yeah, it's pretty much the state comes in and says, this is the developability of your system. And you can't, if you meet a certain level, you can't connect anything, like whatever it is, which makes sense. I mean, it's smart. I would say that where that really is coming from is the EPA. The EPA has standards. And then the state of Utah administers those standards. And the state of Utah does have some flexibility within those EPA's guidelines.
Exactly, I got a question, Brandon. So this line you're talking about, the skirts on the bottom, with your pointer, is that based on projects that have existing building permits in place now, or is it based on a model based on how we're kind of growing?
So great question. So that's based upon just new growth. So on that line doesn't have account for all the ones that the cities have authorized. But we're assuming that it's just gonna follow this pattern of what the absorption rate is. So that line is based upon about a 3 to 3.5% growth. Where those homes go, I don't have ideas for it. I have some ideas for it, but it's about 3.5% growth.
Use your 3.5% growth based on like 20, 50-year, what's your historical. So that counts COVID and all that.
Well, we know there'll be some fluctuation in that line. Where we get our number from is, so the Kim C. Gardner Institute out of the University of Utah has contracted with the state of Utah to come up with growth predictions. And so we basically have them go and crunch the numbers about what the growth rate is, considering all the different variables. And they come up with that number, and we follow that number in this graph. What's interesting about the Kim C. Gardner Institute study is they're always off down here. They've always struggled. And so they actually came down and did a little bit more of a detailed study about our community and what could affect growth. And they looked at power, demographic, they looked at like about 20 different variables. And came back and he says there's only one variable that will affect growth in Washington County. And that's water. And they say you will continue to grow at a very rapid rate unless water stops that. So.
Oh, the only other question, the next slide was the final one that had the dates.
Okay, so this is what we're rolling out, but Mary, you had some additional.
Yeah,
questions.
I had some additional questions. See, this is what was the next slide.
Thanks.
Okay, so the questions that I had said that I feel that the most of the people in town want to know is, if you join the water pooling agreement, number one, how much will our water bill go up?
So your water bill, it depends on how much water you're using. So if you come in, we would make you do the excess water surcharge. So it's different for older homes and newer homes. So for older homes, you probably wouldn't see very much of effect unless they're using an astronomical amount of water. For your new homes, it could go up significantly if they're using all that certain water. Okay, the goal that we have is to keep water bills around $35, $40 a month if they're using a reasonable amount of water. So it's hard for me because someone will come to you and say, hey, Zach, said your water bills, my water bill wasn't going up, and they might have like a $400 water bill, but it really will be if they start getting to those penalty numbers.
Okay, and then the next question was what would be the increase in the impact fees for new construction?
So right now, our impact fees using the water conservation numbers is $13,500. And so a new connection would be required to pay for that. The city would, the new developer would. In fairness, that number will be going up too.
Okay, to approximately, what do you guys have as estimates as to what that number is going to go up to?
So right now, we're in the process of reviewing our impact fee analysis, so I can't specifically say what that number is. But it will be going up by thousands of dollars. This new model that we're looking at, to get all this infrastructure in place, it's gonna cost about $1 billion. And so the question is, who's gonna pay for the 1 billion? And my board has came out very strongly that developers and new people moving to the community to pay for that the existing residents should bear that burden.
Should not.
Should not, so AKA higher impact fees.
Both, and is commercial impact fees for commercial going to be higher than for impact fees for residential?
It depends on what kind of commercial you have. So if it's a commercial development, we go in and actually do an analysis of it. And so if, let's say, I'll use an example, if it's a mattress store where all they have is like 2 bathrooms and a kitchenette, it'd probably be a lower rate. But if they were coming in and they want, let's say, a 2-inch meter and they're building a hotel, their impact fees would be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So you talked a little bit about the conservation plan. Could you explain more what the impact of that would we, if we join the water pooling agreement, Virgin will be required to adhere to that new conservation plan, correct?
That's correct.
And what approximately, give us an idea of what the impact is on that new, with that new conservation plan.
So for commercial, it pretty much bans any type of turf around that commercial, industrial, or anything. They can't have grass. They can't come to the city council and ask for a specific waiver, explaining why they need a chunk of grass. So if it was like a daycare center, and that is a commercial activity, but they came in and said, we need a chunk of grass for kids to play on, then you guys could grant that waiver. So there is a little flexibility, but very little. Pretty much any appliances have to be water efficient. So that would be the big thing on that. The other thing that would be required for homes, the real big thing on homes is it really limits the outside turf. And so the outside landscaping, only 8% of that could have the grass up to about 20,000 square feet that they would be capped at. And then, so if you have a big yard, it would have to be desert landscaping. It could be sports courts or whatever, but they would be limited to those uses. Inside the home, same thing, water efficiency appliances. And depending on a certain size, and there's a lot of little caveats, but they might, if you have a big home, they have to probably install like one of those recirculation pumps where you have instant hot water or a few things like that. And so there's about 5 pages of requirements that I'd be happy to send to you. You can kind of look through those. Most of the cities have already adopted that. We're still working on a couple of cities, but overall, it's been most of the cities, like Ivans has actually gone substantially farther than what we're requiring. For some cities have just adopted that.
Okay, the last question that I had on my email to you was, will there be unlimited water available for development and further building projects in Virgin if we join the water pooling agreement? Because we have people who seem to think we will have unlimited water. This will solve everything for us.
So
Will it?
it would put this city on par with the other cities. So right now we have a contract, and once you guys use up that contract of water, you won't have any more. If you join the agreement, then you would be put on par with all the other communities. And so right now, we have a 20-year plan. And so I can say that and looking at the numbers, we could bring on Virgin, assuming you grow about 3.5% and still fit it into our 20-year plan. And grow that way.
And then what happens at the end of the 20 years?
So I'm retiring in 15 years. So it's a discussion our community is gonna have to continue to have. And so we are still working on the Lake Powell pipeline. There's a massive amount of politics that has to go on. And so in about 10 years, we'll have an idea of where the Lake Powell pipeline is. In 10 years, we're gonna have to sit, the regional water supply agreement, they're gonna have to sit down and have another very hard discussion. And Virgin can either be at that table or not. So I would ask, so after I had some inquiries from the mayor and their attorney, the agreement about bringing on, another thing that there has expressed a lot of interest in is your septic systems up here and wastewater. And so if the district were to come up here and provide more water, one thing that we would be asking for is a plan on how you're going to deal with all that wastewater and how that's going to affect the river. And I mean, there's definite solutions there, but that would be definitely one thing that the district would want to know, or at least have a plan. So we don't get to the end here.
You're saying it's good for the fish, so we're just gonna dump it in the river.
If it's treated, and that's an option is that's just it from an engineering standpoint, there's solutions that we could treat it and put it into the system. Just up here, or we could, run it down the hill, there's engineering solutions to that, but that's one of the things that we would definitely be asking for.
Okay, and we've been dealing back and forth with Bree at the Water Conservancy District about doing a groundwater protection study, because you and I talked about that as well. And my understanding is that you would really like a groundwater protection study.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah,
Would you want that before letting us join the water pollution agreement?
it kind of depends. If you came to me and said, we're just gonna run our wastewater down to Ash Creek and all our sewer water system, go to the treatment plant down there, then it's not as big as an issue. Because I know it's being treated, but if you're saying, no, we want to only have septic systems up here, then absolutely. So, kind of
So no joining, if we stay with septic, no joining the water pooling agreement without doing the groundwater protection study.
I don't want to say that directly, but that, yes.
Okay, okay.
I want to know what's going to happen to the water, how the water's going to be treated, and all that
I
stuff.
think the district and the board would want to know what requirements they would require of Virgin, what standards, and they'd only be able to get that from looking at groundwater protection.
Right.
So it needs.
Thank you
to
for
come
putting it
in
that way.
correlation with, the terms of the town gender. It would be conditional upon everyone in condition.
Okay. Well, we've been talking about doing this and we're getting really close to being ready to go forward with it. We're very close. And
Good.
so I just wanted to ask why you were here.
Yeah.
Let's see.
She's looking at the last email. So you're talking about existing homes will remain as they are. New homes obviously come with higher value. What about sale? Somebody sells their home and they move out of the area, somebody else moves in, they come up to that new rate, or they somehow grandfather.
They're granted. Now, if they take advantage of the grass rebate program, then we pay them money for that grass rebate, and one of the conditions of getting the money is we actually put an easement on that property, saying this home's taking advantage of the grass rebate, so that grass can, so if there was new owner, he can replant that grass. But yeah, I could transfer 100 times and we wouldn't require it.
So I want to make sure I'm saying that clear. So that rate that they're paying as an existing homeowner, if they sell, that rate's gonna stay the same to them.
Correct.
Now, the old homes are gonna become very valuable compared to the new home that's paying a higher rate.
Could be.
Good to know. I live in an old home.
Okay.
Second thing on this, you've talked about grass, what about trees? What about gardens? Things use water.
So generally, if they're growing trees or like a garden for food, now we're not talking like alfalfa that's fed to a cow, we're talking about direct consumption, then they would be exempt from it. That's allowed in the water standards you're allowing. With trees, they're exempt also, but we're encouraging people to plant trees that are more conducive to a desert environment. So,
So what about pasture land? Like we all have an acre lot, so half of our land is pasture, without pasture.
to remove or to keep it?
Would we have to remove it? in
No.
that Scenario,
Now,
but
if
the
you-
great rebate, how would that play out?
where do you get your water from the pasture?
Irrigation,
Oh, so that, we kind of put you in a little bit more in the farming category, and we're not paying any money for farmers to rip out there or anything like that. So the farm, however, he came to me and said, hey, I have this water share,
Mhm.
and I don't wanna utilize this water share anymore, we will buy those. And so it's not necessarily a rebate to rip out the bill, it's more
Yeah.
you just sign your water, you don't get the bill, you buy.
right? Thank you.
Good questions.
When you guys have, when people come with development projects, how often are they presenting, their own water shares? Bringing forward their own water shares?
Pretty rare, and the reason why is because there's a lot of water rights out there, and about 75% of them are essentially worthless.
Okay.
So if I do have a developer that comes in with that 25% that is valuable, then we will work out a contract with them where we will reduce their impact fees based on them feeding that water to the district. But it hasn't happened since COVID. This happened like before COVID was my last deal. Generally what happens, they show up some crappy water right, I look at it and say, yeah, we're not interested. Just bigger impact fees.
Okay. I want to go back to something you said a minute ago. I want you to explain one more time what you said about wastewater. Our wastewater here in Virgin. If we were to join the water pooling agreement, what you would want to see with regard to the wastewater? Assuming that we did not stay with septic, but went a different.
So whatever the city chooses to do, I would want an engineering study that says. Whatever, how the wastewater is gonna be treated will not affect the Virgin River. And so 60% of our drinking water in this county is coming from a diversion channel just downstream. And I have a huge interest in keeping that water pristine and the way it is. If we get too many septic systems or the system is not handled up here, then it will start to affect that water quality. And so I want to ensure that. And so there's a lot of different options there, but I would want an engineering study that says this is specifically how we're gonna handle it. I will review that study and as long as it's engineeringly accepted, there's some flexibility there, we would grant, but that would be my. It really is up to the board whether you come in or not, but that would be my statement to the board, and I did talk to the board about you guys coming in. And they're open to it, but that was also an issue that kind of came up, they're like, what's going on with your subject? So, that's what it is there.
And when you say the diversion dam that's right down here, you're talking about the one that's before you even get to Laverton, right? Before you go downhill, that one right there. Okay,
Yeah, that's
All
what
right.
I'm in there, right?
Right.
The whole sheet's great.
yes, okay.
So, yeah, hopefully none of you trespass grounds here, so. Don't go down there. It's dangerous.
Okay, so those were the questions I had for him to answer for everyone in town. We did have a wastewater study, before I go on and see if you guys have any more. We did have a wastewater study done and I sent you a copy of it. But it was $7 million if we were doing it. It was like $16 million, assuming that we cannot afford to do that. And we are limited to septic because we cannot afford that. How does this impact our potential acceptance into the park?
So if your conclusion was you wanna run a sewer line down to Ash Street, whatever that is,
Yes.
if that is what your city wants, I will do everything I can to help you get that money. And so whether that's going to the legislature, the state does have some grants that we can definitely work with. Every once in a while, Congress puts some grants out there that, if that's what you want to do, I would help you find the money to make it work. So with any grant though, I will say that there will be a portion of that. And so I would encourage you, if you decide to do that, we also develop an impact fee that would also help pay for a portion of that line.
Okay,
But if that's the direction, I will do whatever I can to help you.
Okay. Any questions from anybody else on town council? And I'm actually gonna let some people in the town audience ask some questions if you guys have any questions for Zach. Okay. I'll let you ask, there were some other people that had questions, so one question, not multiple questions. That you have for Zach.
You want me to speak loud?
Yeah, you can just speak loud, you have a good voice.
Haven't given their names.
Yeah, what's your, yeah,
In the year 2012, the moratorium on water use, on the use of Virgin River water rights, it's initiated by, Division of Wildlife Resources.
you said.
You can remember that. We started on that.
In
In
2020,
2012, Division of Water Rights Resources put out a moratorium, maybe some of the people here, and prohibit us from using our water rights of the Persian River. 2012, now we're over 10 years, and the state has never proposed anything equitable for us, for them not allowing us to use all our water rights. Can't tell them water's going for as much as 25,000 an acre foot. You know, it's just sitting there. And we're just waiting for the drought, and that's what they claim, it's because of the drought that they restricted our use. And so year after year, we wait. I went to the legislature trying to get a fair and equitable settlement for those hundreds of people that are on the list that cannot use their water right. And I've heard nothing from the legislature.
so what is this, what's your question? Get to your
The
question.
question is, could you do anything? You're more than one person. You have to kick it. You go to the legislature and get a fair and equitable solution for all of us that are just sitting there, waiting to reuse our water rights.
So what you said doesn't quite make sense, because like this year, everybody on the Virgin River got 100% of the allocation of water rights. So like this year, you had,
Private users even,
what's that?
private users,
Yes,
they never notified me.
so what we have right now is on the Virgin River, we have a water commissioner. And he basically goes up, and so if there's less water in the system, he looks at the priority gate of the water right and will go up the river and shut people off. Where there's more water than the people go. This year, he did not make, they call it a call, it's the term for it. He did not make any calls on the river this year because we've had a great water. So if you had water, we could have used it. Now, next year, if we go into a drought, that commissioner will come and make calls. And so right now, like Lamerton City has the best water rights on the river. They have the oldest water rights and they will get their water no matter what. Where like Perkins City will actually start getting cut off. And so it just kind of depends on the flows and what's going on there.
No,
But yeah, this year, yeah, use it.
Okay,
I have a question.
April?
So in your conservation plan, have you considered the use of gray water for irrigation and possibly require that your construction has a system where they can use gray water for irrigation, or maybe retrofitting existing residences, for example?
Yes, so what we're doing there is. Like Washington, most of the cities now in the regional water supply agreement are requiring developers to put in a secondary system. And that secondary system will be charged with this treated wastewater. And so they'll use that on the outside. So like if you go down to Desert Collar or Desert Canyon, if you go in front of their homes, they will have 2 meters. They have one that's in a purple box and one in a black or green box. And the purple box right now is treated sewer water. And so we're just gonna expand that as much as we can. Now retrofitting is very expensive if it's existing. So we won't do retrofitting into old subdivisions because it's just ripping up the road and all that's not economically feasible, but all the new stuff we are, we're exceeding. So I estimate that 75% of our new homes will be using this reuse water house. But even with that, we still have to meet those very strict requirements.
So we don't have any requirement for that.
No, not right now, but if the city came back and said, hey, this is something we want to utilize. And we want to keep the water here in the community, but we want to treat it to those standards. Then that's something we definitely look at and see what we can work out. With this reuse water, the standard, well, I should go back, there's black water and there's gray water, so black water is the toilet. and the gray water is the shower. And so the shower water is usually not too bad, there's still some clean stuff to do there, but once it goes into the system, we treat it all as black water. And the requirements require very high treatment levels. But that's what we're gonna do with a big mechanical system. If there was some other options there, I'd be very interested in that, so. Yeah.
I was wondering, what's the cost, if you're ever gonna do the Lake Powell pipeline? If you're ever gonna do the Lake Powell pipeline, what is the cost of the pumping plants?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question too. The reason why I'm pausing on that is because electric rates have gone crazy recently.
Sure.
And the amount we're paying for electricity is just double, and so it really would just depend on what the electric rates are at that point. And so,
So I went to a meeting years ago on Thompson, and he did the fallacy of saying that the hydraulic forces pay for the power, which is totally wrong. So, and the last I heard was $2 billion just for the pumping plants, or is that?
that's a whole lot. That's $2,000.
And that's been there for how long? Because if it's gonna be 10 years down the line, it's gonna be 4 or 5 billion.
Well, and so here's the tough thing is, I don't know what inflation is gonna do, and I don't know what the price is still gonna be. And so I can say in today's dollar, if we were there, it'd be about $2 billion.
And power costs.
Power cost, right, the last time we looked at it, about how much it would cost to bring the power over here, they were looking at about $4 per 1,000 gallons. So it's expensive water, but we could bring, there will be some gain back to the system coming through. But why I think it's so difficult is, and why it's a variable is because at night, I get power rates, really dirt cheap rates. And so I'll pump that thing as hard as I can at night. But then when the fluctuation goes, I probably shut it off. And so we would sit there and time that as best we could to get the cheapest power rates. But there's a lot of variables. I don't know what the power rates would be.
No, but the last meeting I went to was total BS.
We will get some electric back, but it's not one of them.
Okay, let's move on to the next person.
So my question is more practical.
Okay,
You mentioned your goal was $35 a household for water. How many gallons is that?
5,000 gallons less.
And Mayor, what is our current rate?
You'll have to ask about Crystal, she does.
Crystal?
$55 base is our current rate, and then 1,000 gallons to 15,000 gallons is $1 for every 1,000 gallons. Then it goes up quite a bit from there, so $2 from up to 20,000 gallons, and then $2.50 up to 25,000 gallons, I just keep going up.
I believe we have 15 in our base, right? In the first 55.
No, 55 is base for 0.
55 is the bottom.
So if
That's-
you use 1,000 gallons, your bill will be $56. Okay, do that. Anybody else? Anybody on that side? Good.
Ian, who else have a question?
Jane, Kevin, have a question.
Who? Jay.
Jane, Kevin.
Are you aware that, the sewer district, the Ashford Sewer District, their policy is that whoever runs water into that, into be treated, they only have one. So if Virgin runs their water to Ashford Sewer District, Virgin owns that water when it's treated. You aware of that?
So, yes and no. So what they're saying is true, but what they're saying is not legally correct. So who owns the water from Virgin as opposed to the sewer treatment plant is the water district. So how Utah State water rights work is when it goes to the when it goes to a reuse system, they go back to the original water right owner. And so right now, Virgin is getting their water through a water right owned by the water district. And so when that water goes to a sewer treatment plant and treated, if it's used for reuse, then it goes back to the original water right holder, which is the district. And so even though you pay, so you kind of pay to use it, but the water right will come back to the district. So that's how it works.
Jay, another point in that regard too is in order to use reuse water, you have to have the means to bring it back up here from all.
So I heard that the dam at San Paulo is failing, is that?
Yes.
Do one thing.
So at one time I used the word, so San Paulo is built on sandstone, and so it's designed to seep. And so we actually, we shouldn't say, well, we're actually pushing water into that aquifer. In fact, if you go out there and look, that reservoir holds about 50,000 acre feet of water, and we've actually pushed into the aquifer about 130. So we actually have almost double the amount of water in there, so it was funny because one time somebody from my office said, yeah, the reservoir is leaking water. And all of a sudden I get these phone calls saying, what do you mean it's leaking? And the better word is the reservoir was designed to seep. But the dam itself is not leaking, we check it, well, when, depending on water levels, right now since it's full, we check it every single day.
That's the reason why you're building additional wells around the reservoirs, so that, I mean, the charge that the reservoir is putting, the charge that the reservoir is putting into the sandstone probably greater than initially expected. And so, I mean, they're able to put some additional wells to pull some more of that water. That is the most natural, good way of purifying the water than any sort of treatment system.
Okay, just, oh, Jay has another question?
Yeah, back on the water issue, or the sewer, under the present contract, who has the right to reuse that water?
You know, I'd have to go back and look at it, if the contract's there that says that.
Yeah, the contract says that that's one thing that water lines would not pass on water conservancy district says we get the reuse of it. Yours said no, and the contract shows that Virgin has the use of that water under the present contract. If
I have to touch on that one, because I have to look at it, if the city wanted to do a reuse system up here, reuse that. We would have to go to the state engineer and file that water right application. And so what I would do is the water right would still be in the district name,
Yeah.
but then I'd say, well, contractual terms that we're keeping the water up here. Which I'd be happy to do, like, you need the water, yeah.
Okay, Kent has a question, and this is the last question.
Sorry. You own a lot of property at the mouth of the Mark Creek.
Yes.
And at one time, it was rumored maybe the church for Shan here. Is there any thought on your mind to go plan for that?
So it's not even a 20-year plan. And so. With that, but in fairness, I'm not listing it for sale. So I don't know. So Ron bought that land, didn't do anything with it, and I don't have any plans with it, and it's not our 20-year plan to do it as well. So.
Okay, thank you, Zach, for that presentation, being able to come out here, and I need my little,
Okay,
don't walk off with it.
I have before them.
Okay. So you are free to go. You do not need to hang out any longer. Thank you, Zach. Keith,
You want to break?
yeah, we're gonna take a break. We'll take a break and you can talk to them for a few minutes, because I want to do the next part. We're gonna take a break. Oh, yeah. So never mind.
I know.
Well,
Oh, yes. Yes. But that. Right, he's gonna do the say bye. See you. That's what I'm thinking, it may not be, it's not good, you will see.
Hello.
I'm fine.
Why?
I hear you. Right, yeah. Yeah, that's, you know, but they go start. Yeah.
She has not been 5 minutes.
Yeah. I know so.
Okay, guys, come on. Yes, we gotta start. But I don't need a, I don't know, just let them know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not here, yeah. Okay,
I've asked him.
Yeah.
And,
you got nothing.
but, yeah, he talked about, they talked about this.
Yeah.
Let's wait for everyone.
Okay, so September 11th,
Yeah.
6 p.m. Okay.
I'm ready for PowerPoint.
That sounded.
Oh, they're going to get PowerPoint for them. We'll work on it.
Keen, I had requested, like we talked about, a meeting, like a presentation to the entire board. I felt like getting an individual board member, it's not really getting, and it kind of just,
Well, he made it sound very positive.
well, so that's why I want to talk.
That's why you want to talk.
When again, the council feels strongly that they want a presentation, so we get all the board members there, they can hear and ask questions, get everyone's answers. We all know what is kind of path forward. Is it having a sewer solution? Plan in place, or how we're gonna get to a plan? If that's the holdup, you see, no, okay, let's do it. So, he said, I'll put you on the September 11th agenda.
All right, so I am ready to get back to, I got to see if I'm still sharing the screen here. Nope, Paul's really? Jeez, this thing,
It's not gonna happen.
I do not understand. I know, he started working and I was like, yay. Okay, so we're ready to move on to, the next item on the agenda, which is, the complaints. So the first complaint was from, we're following up, we allowed Lori Rose to have a rebuttal from what was said at the last meeting, where we talked about this, and she has presented a letter that she would like to have, read into the record because she is not here today. So I am going to read Lori's letter into the record. She says, "Dear Virgin Town Mayor and Town Council, I am unable to attend the Town Council meeting on Tuesday evening, and so am submitting this letter reiterating the position I voiced at last month's council meeting. I have not been contacted by the town since, not received any additional information, and not been personally notified pursuant to Town Code 2.22B of the status of my complaint or that it is scheduled to be discussed at tomorrow's meeting. The case law provided last month is not applicable to the situation about which I complain. And if Mr. Snow's contention that recent changes to state code intended to allow uses which are not specifically prohibited within a zone, well, then what is the point of zoning? My complaint is about a commercial outfitting /guide/tour use in a residential zone, a use which is not consistent with the purpose of nor permitted either outright or conditionally in residential zones, but is permitted in the commercial zone and conditionally permitted in the HRZ. No application was submitted for consideration by the town for this use, and it has not been approved by Virgin Town's Land Use Authority. At the last meeting, the mayor stated she verbally authorized the use, and 2 of the council members have told me that the use was authorized because the private landowner had granted written permission for use of their land. This simply is illegal. Every day, 30 to 40 bus trips access the business's takeout location, takeout in quotes, where an employee is staged to greet them and signs direct customers to where the next bus will pick them up. The company should be directed to find an alternative takeout site located within either the commercial zone where it may be permitted or highway resort zone where it may be conditionally permitted following appropriate land use authority review and approval. Commercial use of takeout locations in the rural residential zone should be immediately stopped. Thank you, Lori Rose." So I read that into the record. We had told Lori last town council meeting that she would be allowed to reflect the letter that we got from Keith and what all we talked about in the meeting. And so this was her rebuttal. So any discussion by town council members? No, nobody has anything to say?
What we said last time is where I stand. The attorney said last time stands as well as far as I'm concerned.
And would you just remind us what that was?
I don't have a letter from the attorney.
No, I don't mean what the attorney said, I mean what you.
Well, just the same thing that the attorney said that that's her opinion of what is illegal and what is not. I think they've done a lot of good for the town, a lot more than people realize. And I know that it's a temporary period of time they're gonna be operating there. I think they've only got less than 30 days. I'm talking to the mic.
I'd like you to speak in your mic better, please.
They've got like 30 days left.
Just on disrespectful to me
No,
and to her.
no.
We didn't ask you disrespectfully. Great, nobody said it's legal.
I'm not gonna talk any louder in the mic than I'm talking now.
Just,
Pull the mic closer to you. That's what she was
No comments.
okay,
All right, I'm just saying that I don't think that, this is such a big deal. We need to make a DEFCON 7 out of it. When we've got less than 30 days until the season ends. And we're already working on something for them to, enter and exit the river at different points in the future.
okay, thank you, Jean.
I agree with Gina. I think this is blown out of context. And I feel that we should help small little businesses that want to come, that live here in the town. And want to have a business when they're not causing any problems. They're using some property that they were granted the right to use. They researched that and found that out, and they're using public roads. And I think it's improper for us to tell someone they can't drive on the public road.
Okay. Misty, anything to add?
No, the last time I said it as well, it's a temporary solution, it's a difficult solution, but it is a temporary solution to solve the problem, so.
Cool.
So here's that I'm in the minority view on this, so, I guess, at some point, we're gonna make a motion, so if it's a full, good thing here now. But, I agree with Lori's assessment, it's more than just driving on the roads, it is a business using land in a rural residential area for commercial purpose. And no application was made for that particular use, and it wasn't decided by a land use authority. And it's also a use that is not permitted in a residential zone. It is permitted in commercial zone, it's permitted as a conditional use permit in residential hotel zone. And so I think you still have to go through some type of procedure to allow the use. I commend the mayor in trying to find the solution, but that doesn't excuse us from following our ordinances. Because this is, when I look at this, you have somebody that came in and used a particular piece of ground in a piece of land, in a rural residential area that's for commercial use. What precludes me from taking my lot and setting up some type of virgin Chippendale, the virgin exotic dancers in that lot, because it doesn't prohibit it within a residential zone. And that's what I'm hearing, because it's not prohibited, therefore it's allowed. So I'm gonna be voting no, or the opposite, whatever that means.
Paul, in your example, doing that on a permanent basis or on a temporary basis?
Either way. Doesn't matter.
I think we're kind of opening Pandora's box. I know of at least 4 or 5 people in town that are operating businesses in their residence. And they're not claiming it. And so if we go after the two, we need to go after all of those other people that are doing the same thing. That have been doing it for years.
You know, Leroy, I understand that argument, but it's the same argument that you hear people get caught by the police, well, 5 other cars were speeding besides me. Does that make that right?
No, what I'm saying, if we go after them, we have to go after the others. I'm not saying it's wrong or right. What I'm saying, if we do that, we have to go after the others too, Paul.
And if they're not following the ordinance, then we need to either change the ordinance or bring them into compliance. I mean, you don't have to go out there, you can go in the process and change the ordinance to make certain uses permissible. So we'd have to take a look at each of those. But yes, if the person's not following the ordinance, then you need to proceed to enforce it, or change the ordinance. And to your question, I guess whether it's permanent or temporary, you still have to follow the ordinance.
Yeah, but a special event, that is special use permit. Temporary use is temporary use. And, you know, if someone wanted to have a concert or do some sort of, I don't think they're going to do, event in a residential zone that wasn't normally, but it was going to be. Here's a perfect example. Say a neighborhood decides they want to do a farmer's market and sell things every Saturday through the summer. And they came to the city from town and asked for a special use permit or a temporary use permit to do something. I think we'd evaluate that and say, okay, it's not permanent, it's not a permanent use of property, it's temporary, and we'll put some restrictions on it. And I've been an advocate saying, hey, probably what should have been done is that there needed to be some sort of special use permit and go through the process so that there was the ability for neighbors and residents, and that so that there could be some possible requirements or restrictions crafted to balance the burden on the neighborhood and safety issues and things like that. But we haven't done that. I'm hearing that there's only a short window left in that, and maybe we're too far on that. But no, I do think there is a little bit of difference between a permanent use and a temporary use.
Yeah, because what my response to Lori wanting them to make an application of some sort is to let them make a temporary use permit application and grant them their temporary use. There's almost, they're not here for me to ask how much time they have left. I think school has started, college has started, there's not going to be much in the way of tubing left. And then the season ends before too long. So as you said, we're so far into the process that by the time we come up with any solution, they've already stopped because the season's over. And then next year, they will be somewhere else.
Or
Because this was just the
or they-
temporary solution.
Yeah, and still, like, they don't fill the 30 days. There's nothing wrong with making them, even if it's the last fifth of the season, coming right now. And you can put some requirements if you want to say only 20 takeouts a day or 10 takeouts a day or whatever type thing, then people might have to sit around a little bit longer at the takeout. I don't know. I'm just trying to balance.
All right,
But that's where I'm saying, I think there is a way that we can ratify and address this and do it in a way that public and residents have input. We consider all concerns and we craft conditions of a temporary permit, use permit, to do it.
okay.
Those are issued to the clerk though, right?
Yeah, the temporary use permit is approved by the clerk.
They already came in and filled out the application. We see that as the solution.
Yeah. We don't have an ordinance on temporary or special use permits. do we?
Yes.
So there's something in the town code,
It's in the code.
it's in the code about temporary. use.
We allow it, we
Okay.
allow it for money in the park, or about temporary use.
So that must be one of the things under one of the other whole provisions that is not updated online because.
No, it's there. It's in, I found it the other day, it's on there, you just have to search for temporary.
We do have a provision that says you cannot use, for any other permits if the use of land is contrary to our ordinance. I don't have a problem with special use permits as long as you do it in the process and you provide.
That's why.
Yeah, and I don't mind that. The question, the thing here, it's never been done. And that's what I have.
They have came in this week and built up temporary use.
This week after Lori made the complaint, I mean, that's something that should have been done before the fact, or the minute there was a violation, saying, okay, look, we got to process.
But in all fairness, I think they were operating thinking that they had the permission of the city.
Correct.
Maybe staff might have directed them wrong.
Which, yeah, which they probably should have
Got it.
done. Right.
It's just basic.
But I think there's two sides of the coin. You can't say, oh, they're not following the ordinances, when we're not even following the ordinances of this process. That we didn't follow our own complaint ordinance in the process that's supposed to take place when somebody has a complaint. They never had a chance to, but the gentleman that's here tonight to speak to us has not gone through that same process. He's filled it out, but we're not following our own processes. We're bringing it before the council. So to me, we either gotta follow all of it, or we get to pick and choose, which is kind of what I'm seeing going on here. With Lori coming, did the tubers get an opportunity to speak their case? Did she follow those ordinances that are in 2.22? And the answer is no. We just brought them to the council, listened to her side, and
But that's
No,
not her
we
fault.
investigated,
That's not her fault.
we did investigate.
I know, I'm saying it's our fault. We can't say that the tubers didn't follow the process if we're not following our own processes.
No, we totally investigated what was going on with the tubers. As far as I was concerned, I went through the complaint process. And we had reached the point in the process for where our own code said, bring it to the town council. We did our investigation. We were ready to go. Hold on, Jane. So as with regard to Lori, I put it on the agenda because we had reached the point where it was ready to go. So, I'll just disagree with you on that.
I'm
Okay. Okay, so, Jay has something to say, and then we're gonna move on to the next complaint. There's nothing to vote, there's nothing on the agenda about voting.
Are we gonna do any, well, after Jay says his piece, are we taking any action on this?
It just has discussion.
No, it says motion, well,
No, it says discussion.
It just.
and you amended it to just discussion from the original
The
agenda.
original one, we had 3 complaints and we removed one of the complaints and we changed it to discussion. Yes, Jay.
I'm one of the citizens and actually
Impact.
that is residential. And those people drive down that street and, but it seems to me like they're doing all their business up at the commercial place. They're not doing business down there, they're just driving down a street that is a city street that everybody can drive down and picking up tubers and hauling them out. I don't see that they're doing business and that I enjoy it. Coming by, they're laughing, they're waving, there's kids there, and anyway, I'm out in the garden and they're waving and I'm waving to them. And anyway, it's kind of fun to watch, so anyway, we'll have to bet there.
Thank you, Jim.
I also give Jay kudos. His memory was very good back in the 1997 water agreement. And you were dead spot on paragraph 22 says the town gets the rights to all reuse water.
The little part of it says it.
If anyone would have known, remembered and known, it would have been Jay.
Jay.
And leave the Indians, because Zach, that was one thing Zach said out there, he said, I've already read that thing 20 times, I don't remember anything about reuse, and I said, I've never read it before reuse. And it's in there.
Okay, well, I read that thing, I couldn't tell you how many times, I did not notice that.
I thought to myself, was
Chapter 22.
was the science of
Section
reuse water and that whole concept really big in 1997? I didn't, I would've thought they would have even thought about it, but it's there.
Okay,
So kudos to Jay.
Okay, so our next complaint form is from Kent. And Kent, the reason I put Kent on the agenda, Jean, you and I already talked about it, is, we have a real question as to who bears responsibility. His issue is noxious weeds. I don't know if you have a copy in your file folder that Crystal gave you. And it's about the growth of noxious weeds on some private property next to him. And, oh, I have your picture. Find it.
Yeah, some of those properties are privately owned now, not just by farmers, but. Were some of those properties sold out individually? They're not just owned by Palmer anymore.
There are a few that are still individually owned, but only like a handful.
Just a couple, okay.
Yeah, there's very, very few that are, they're almost all.
I can remember.
It's almost all of them. So here are pictures showing on the screen. Kent took these pictures a while back and sent them showing the weeds on, these are two different lots, or is this the same one?
It's two different lots.
Two different lots, okay.
So if you take the bottom picture, I think it's maybe the better one. That she's pointing is the east lot, which is the lot number 1 of K and B Estates owned by Ashby.
Okay,
And the one behind the wall is a Palmer lot owned by the Palmers and is in Sierra Bella.
are these lots right next to each other?
Here, I brought this for you.
Oh, thank you, I have them in my own backyard.
Oh, thank you, it's not relevant.
Very nice to meet you, flowers. Hey,
The rest of us feel left out.
I don't have any.
So my issue before you go on, Kent, is although we have a town code that talks about controlling noxious weeds on your property, I've always been led to believe that when there is noxious weeds on town property, that the county is the one that is responsible. And so what do you know about that?
Yes, you need or he.
He,
if it's on city.
private property.
Private property. Well, I was looking to see our definition of nuisance. It seems to me like most municipalities nuisance ordinances reference indicates that it's one type of nuisance, but it's not, we don't.
We don't have it as a
Yes.
nuisance, but it is in our code.
It's property maintenance.
Yeah,
I know, well, I shouldn't say I know, I have hearsay that, Mrs. Palmer Robin has received a letter from the county telling them that they need to clean those weeds out.
okay.
And I know in the past, that's been brought up, that if we don't take care of the weeds in our private yards, the county comes in and removes them and charges us. Now, I don't know anybody that's happened to in my time, but that was my understanding.
Right now, we're one of those invoices for one lot.
You received them?
Yes, for the Russian thistle. And it's really bad even in Sierra Bella, so I'm hoping that they step up, but I don't anticipate, we tried calling them to see if we could do a joint with some of the property owners resolution, we haven't heard back.
And I know, and I can't speak to the present, but I'm sure it's the same, but in the past, the town used to on the streets, spray along the streets to knock the stuff down, and the stuff.
And I think we have,
We only for the setbacks, right?
yeah, we should do it for
Alright.
public property, I mean, we're under that obligation. And I know that I didn't see anything under ordinances, but I know under state law, we could do ordinances that deals with weeds, but it seems duplicate of what the county's doing.
So,
Yeah.
are you looking at 8.38? Okay.
Town shall require corrective action by responsible parties to control the impacts on the town's image and neighboring properties of negligence and upkeep when property neglect creates off-site impacts, responsible parties shall be taken to, and then we get down to A, there's preventive travel, noxious weeds.
Right.
to neighboring properties. I'm guessing what the county does, it's done through the health department, and, they have jurisdiction throughout the entire county as to health, and that's something that's not one of our delegated police powers as a municipality, but we have the ability, as a land use authority, we can do it too. Question is what, and what Ken probably wants to know is, will the city take the position, and will the city or the town go, expend the necessary funds to do some enforcement on this, and write letters, follow up with property owners, and
You take a look at 10-11-1 at SEC, because I think that's some delegation of authority to.
This is the state code you're talking about,
Yeah.
10-11-1.
We haven't created an ordinance, we haven't adopted anything under that, so.
that's why if we had in our own nuisance ordinance saying that not to keep, maintaining the noxious weeds, what constitutes an ordinance, then, and we have the whole nuisance abatement process, then I would say, yes, we have taken our right under the code.
But we haven't yet.
We haven't done
I don't
that.
think we have.
Mhm.
And I don't know if the weed department's under the health department, because when you send me a letter,
Who did it go?
weed department, weed control, Brad, I sent you.
Yeah, you sent
an
an email, you sent something that said it was.
Email.
It wasn't on health department's letterhead or anything like that.
No, but they quoted this state statute and, quite frankly, they didn't serve me right, so. They're supposed to serve me personally or by certified mail, but I think it really was a way to get people started, and that would be the next step if we don't come into compliance. And really, I'm all right with that, send me your letter, and if you don't comply, then you follow up with the procedure. If that's what they really intend to do, I don't know. We're in the process of trying to figure out what to do.
I wish Joe was still here, because he's got enough history, he would know if they ever came out and sprayed. I've heard it said, since I've been here many times, that if you don't do this, they will.
They do, because I've talked to a couple, we've had a couple bids come up to help us with that thistle. It's actually in that old gully next to where the creek runs, and it's very thick down there. And the guys that have given us bids have indicated that, yeah, they will come in, they get the contract for it, and then they come in and do it and take care of it.
That's, Brad Minder.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Brad,
thank you.
that's it.
I have no idea it kind of had its own department. It might be a department too, for one, but they have their own department, Brad Winders supervisor.
Okay, so my real issue and the one reason why I put this on the agenda at this point in time is because I wanted to be clear whether or not the way things are written in our town code, because it is one line that just says, when property neglect creates off-site impacts, responsible parties, meaning the landowner, shall take action to prevent the weeds. But I find nothing in this code that is any kind of, other than us writing them a letter and say, would you please do your weeds? I find nothing in here that we can enforce.
What's the code number?
It's on your thing, 8.3A. It's on your applicant form. And so my real issue is, how would we enforce this, other than writing a letter and they ignore us, and then what? We've got no way to enforce this that I can see.
Well, then you call that to 2.22. Enforcement.
Have you read, they made a reference on the county's website to the Utah Noxious Weed Act. And I'm looking at it, it falls under Title IV under the Utah Agricultural Code. And creates a commissioner statewide, and each county can have a weed control board. And it's the counties who are authorized to control that.
And that's what that's what I wanted to know is, when we get this, is there jurisdiction of
Departments
us?
or
or is it
agencies of
jurisdiction
state
of
and
the
local government shall develop, implement, and pursue an effective program to the control of noxious weeds. The county's got one, we don't.
Everybody wants a weed board. So that's.
Well, we don't provide enough resources to Washington County has to staff and fund it, but
county?
You have no problem.
Right over my head.
I think it appears we have the authority to do so, but why, but with the county doing this, and if the county is in fact doing it, then why would we undertake that?
Okay, Cameron has a comment that has something to do with this.
All right, so the county noxious weed board is designated as an entity to control noxious weeds in the county, but noxious weeds are not just any weed. So noxious weeds are invasive, poisonous, or otherwise hard to manage weeds.
there's a list.
There's a whole list of, with pictures. I don't think that the Plansky brought in a mustard, I don't believe mustard
Is on the list.
is on the list.
Well, the county, weed board put a notice in the newspaper, back in June, very beginning of June. That lists, it was in the public notice section of the newspaper, listing all of the weeds that they considered noxious weeds, and it took 2 pages of the newspaper to list it all.
So, under the state code, it says that this, under the Noxious Weed Act, that they're supposed to administratively, so by regulation, they've created a list. And there's several different classes of noxious weeds, and there's a list of them. If you want to know what they are in class 1A and class 1B, and I'm happy to read them to you, but there's a lot of them.
Okay, so
We actually send a flyer out in everybody's newsletter from the Washington County. That they sent to us in March. That stated all the noxious weeds.
okay, I remember that. So, if this weed that, Kent is concerned about is not on the noxious weed list, then it is not under the control of this, not covered by this noxious weed act, so we would say the county.
We don't otherwise have a definition of noxious weed, and so I think by default, then the way a court look at that is there's the state definition of noxious weed, and we probably driven by it.
I think, the nightshade is listed, because the guy coming out, what the dog property said it was. I'm
Russian missile and the nightshade is so, from my readings, and I haven't read the state code, county code. But the tumbler mustard, and there are different mustards. I think we just didn't really think why you might think it's noxious. If one of you would like to hold up one of those plants. Every twig around the canopy of that umbrella.
Has seeds.
No, it has seeds, yes.
Yeah.
It's a seed pod. Every twig is a seed pod. You have to get a magnifying glass. This is the famous mustard we read about in the Bible. And it rolls and opens those twigs. And there are in one of those plants, 1.1, there are 12,500 in each twig. There are 1.5 million in each mature plant or seed. And as they tumble, they drop their seeds. And the seeds can last years, but not too bad. And they're controlled normally in the past by grazing livestock. They love it. It's nourishing in the spring and early summer. So it wasn't a problem in the past. But where we really have a problem with it is where we have developed lots. And that's why I think, and I don't want to be here. I don't want to complain. I have spent years going around my neighbor's property where there's problems. And raking and weeding and Galvin and I spending days and days weeding and coming back and weeding again. We have a beekeeper in our neighborhood. I don't want to spray herbicides and pesticides because of that. And so we eat whenever we possibly can. But some years are worse than others. But the problem is when we don't take care of it. A few years ago, when it was bad, the farmers and the Ashby's were notified by either us or the county. And they either called the town clerk, either you or Monica or maybe Mayor Stenlove, and said, we got a problem. And the landowners were notified and they called us, and the Ashby's and the farmers called and said, do you know someone that can mow it for us and take care of it? And somebody at the town council or the town office said, call Kenny Cornelius. So Kenny got his son and they went and mowed it. We haven't had any trouble 4 years, but now we've had a really wet year and a really wet spring. They came up and nobody took care of it. Yeah, it needed to be mowed, that's all. It just needed to be mowed with the right kind of mower. And it's too big. These are 2+ acre lots in K&B Estates, acre-plus lots over in Sierra Bella. And we've talked numerous times, several times this year, written letters, emailed as the form you prefer, and phone calls to let them know that there's a problem early on in the year. And Diane and I have continued. She's cleaned those 2 corners out. She and I have cleaned those 2 corners out. Every time you clean it out and there's a windstorm, it all fills up again, just like tumbleweeds. And so we try and take care of our site. We try and take care of our neighbors, their absentee neighbors. And I think if they were approached by the town in a polite way, and a caring way, and told that they needed to take care of the weeds on their lot, because you gotta graze them, it's really bad.
Okay, so what I'll do is I will write a letter to Ashby and Palmer, and I will CC the Noxious Weed Board at the county. And then after that point, I'm going to consider this the county's.
Yeah, I'm looking at the act specifically. It says, if the owner or persons in possession of the property fails to take action to control or prevent the spread of noxious weeds within 5 working days after the property is declared a public nuisance, and that's declared by the county weed board, the county, says the county may, after reasonable notification, enter the property without consent of the owner or persons in possession and perform any work necessary consistent with the sound weed prevention and control practices to control the weeds. If the county controls the weeds, they can, 1, seek reimbursement from the property owner of record for the costs, and they demand payment within 30 days. If not paid, it can be after receipt of the demand of payment, then after 90 days, it can become a lien against the property.
Okay,
So
all right,
that's all county.
it's all county.
Can I ask something here? Talking about the fire hazard, that's really more concern to me than, because I know the county has the noxious, but.
Was that on my?
They light up.
Okay, but it sounds like we're about to have a resolution, but go ahead about the fire. Fire.
Sometimes we think that we haven't had a fire, we're never gonna have a fire. There's never a big problem. The hurricane might be 500 miles away. If you live in line, sooner or someday, something's gonna happen. If noxious weeds aren't taken care of, and we all know that's what happened there. I don't know that it hopefully never happens. Well, I think we need to do our part, especially on developed lots that aren't developed. The owners don't want to sell them. They chose not to sell them. If they were told to take care of them, I think they would think a little harder about selling the lots, which I think we would all like to see happen. Thank you.
Okay, I will CC you with my letter.
You're right.
Ken?
All noxious weeds in it.
I'm sorry?
You write the letter, include all noxious weeds, to include Russian thistle.
It sounds like we're actually going to fire Chris can send it out.
Yeah.
If you could.
And then you might as well send one of the Rocky Mountains, because they have an obligation to keep within 15 feet of all their posts, free of noxious.
If I'm gonna send one to these guys, I need to send one to just about every property owner in town.
Well, Rocky Mountain's refusing.
I think it's a matter of practice if you get complaints like what Ken is saying, and stuff like that. I think we need to make it a point of practice to refer the matter
To the county,
to the county.
right?
But I like, Mayor, I like what you did earlier this year in the spring.
Yeah, I called up Palmer and asked him to
You
express.
mentioned it in your letter, a monthly letter. You did.
What did I say?
You said it's time to clean up noxious weeds.
Oh, yes, I did. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. I forget what I say in the newsletter.
You can see the county on that letter as sufficient.
Yeah,
They handed it over.
That's definitely gonna, yeah. That will put the county. Not
And
just
where's
the control department.
Where's the property in Rocky Mountain Power?
Well, I'm not saying, it's on, Rocky Mountain has an obligation to keep their telephones for fire hazards. They keep, they're supposed to, by regulation, keep their telephone poles clear of weeds and stuff, and that, it's on all, it's in Saratoga, and they refuse to do anything, so you might send them a reminder that they got noxious weeds surrounding their posts, because that is a fire hazard, and especially over summer in California, with some of the lines coming down right now, so you might also just do that as a reminder to that.
Okay. I'll CC you with the copy so that you see what I say. Okay. Is that all good? Ken?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we're moving on. The next item on the agenda is, last month, I had on the agenda for you guys to authorize me to sign this, contract with master service agreement with Insight to be, and we authorized me to sign it, but, the town attorney wanted to make some changes. So he has given us a copy now, a red line copy with some changes on the letter. And I just wanted you guys to see this and see if we need to revote on authorizing me to sign it, or consider that I should go ahead with, because you guys have previously authorized me to sign it.
Didn't we say
I thought it was
With he
subject
changes.
to.
But we hadn't seen his changes. I want you guys to see the changes. So if you guys are good with it, then
Yeah,
I'll
I
send this
agree
over
with
to
Paul,
Insight.
we authorize it subject to the attorney.
I just want you guys to see the changes. Okay. Didn't want to sign something without you having seen the changes. All right, I will send this over to Insight, have them redo the contract and send it to me to sign. All right, so the next item on the agenda has to do with, the next two items have to do with the water tank, the east water tank that we're getting, that we've gotten a loan for. So anything I need to know? Okay, so this first, I had already emailed all of you a copy of this letter from the DEQ that came back in June authorizing us with this loan. And I just wanted to go over a little bit with you, some of the stuff, when it comes up on the agendas, you're gonna know why. So if you turn to page, let's see, where is it? Oh, goodness. We have to first do a resolution that we're going to adopt, we're going to issue bonds. And the resolution comes 1 month. We were going to do it today. We put it off to September. The bond council called me and said, let's put this off till September. But I think I'm gonna call him and suggest that we put it off 1 more month to October. That's when we adopt the resolution. After we do the resolution saying that we're going to issue bonds, then a public hearing notice, a public hearing gets set for the following month. And there's many hoops we have to go through. And then we, get to the public hearing. If we do this in October with the resolution, then the public hearing will be in November. And we take public comment, and then the following month, we will vote on, they have so many days to object after we have our public hearing. So we have to allow, I don't know if it was 60 days or what it was that they had to object, 30 days,
I
maybe
think you said
30 days to object. And then we have one more thing to vote on with town council, and then it goes up to the Division of Water Quality. And at the same time, so there's two tracks. We've got the stuff that we, the town council, have to do and have public hearings and vote resolutions and all this. And then on the other hand, we've got the engineer who's getting things ready to go to bid. And in 6 months, they said it would take about 6 months for them to get this ready to go out for bid. So once the engineer is ready to go to bid, and we've done all the stuff we have to do, then they'll give us the money.
They put it in an escrow.
They put it in an escrow account, and we do all sorts of draws as the construction goes along. But I just wanted you guys to be aware so that when the resolution comes and then we have the public hearing, you know what it's all about ahead of time. And that's what's laid out in this letter for everyone to read. Now, on the back page, this leads into the next item on the agenda, which has to do with water rates. So,
Can I ask a question about the previous one before you went to it?
yeah,
Regarding Steve Levy's property and signing the agreement for enzyme.
oh, for inside,
Right, I'm sorry, I should have said something earlier, but you just went too fast.
Okay.
The timeframe. I mean, you're gonna sign it and then they're gonna be released to start the plan review.
well, they're gonna be doing more than plan review. They've already done a plan review for Labrie. They will essentially be acting as the town engineer
Okay.
who overlooks the project, because our presently assigned town engineer is Labrie's engineer.
Right.
He's got a conflict of interest, so we need to assign somebody else to look out for the town's
Right,
interests.
so they
And that's
still,
what that is.
they still need to do the town, plan review for the buildings themselves.
Yeah, because the buildings haven't even, yeah, they'll do all this.
Okay.
And so for the life of the project, as it's being built, they will be this person for the life of, the construction.
Okay.
And they're also going to be it's not just for the Labrie project. We have a similar issue with some other projects in town. So this is actually authorizing them to be, look out on these other projects on behalf of the town. It's not just Labrie. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, because yes, I know there's something, I've been seeing something that they need to look at like right away, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why they,
Started on that service station, like, fast as you can.
yeah, okay. All right, so they've been calling. Where's my contract? Where's my contract? So they can get over there and do that. Okay,
Thank you.
all right. So the next thing, as I was saying, is if you look at the very back page of this, letter, the very last back page of the letter from the DEQ, it says that our annual payment for paying off this loan is an annual payment of $23,000. They then called and wrote and said, oh, we made a mistake in our calculations. And they have so they thought this was a 50% grant, this was based on 50% grant, 50% loan. Then they realized that we had a 70% loan, 30% grant, so they reran the numbers and sent out an adjusted document here for the bond repayment schedule, and the now the payment is $54,000 a year. So, this leads into the next item on the agenda, which is they have told us in this meeting that this conference call I had with many people from the Division of Water Quality and our town engineer, and there must have been 9 people on this phone call, but it's all to do with this loan and the bonds. they indicated that we need to raise our water rates in order to pay off the loan. And we have to fund the operating and maintenance expenses for the 40 years of this loan. And they want, so we have to raise our water rates to cover the annual loan payment, the operating and maintenance expenses. They want us to put 1 month, one annual payment in a reserve account. And then there is another reserve account that the state imposed upon. In 2022, they passed a law requiring towns to have this capital equipment replacement reserve account, which is 5% of all of the infrastructure in town that we have, 5%. So they told us we need to raise, in their calculations, they think we need to raise our water rates $25 a month. And we think that they have made an error in their calculations. And this, we have to decide what we're going to do, because in the resolution, we have to say how much we're raising our rates. So this has to go in conjunction with the resolution and the public hearing. Are we raising water rates and by how much? So what I did is, the town engineer said, the engineer on the project said, what we need to do is to go and look at our, the balance sheet for our water fund. And we've gotten numbers going back 21, 22, last year, 23, and then what we have projected for next year on the next year's budget. And that's what all these pages are that are being put together to start that chart. And Leroy was pointing out that we have been operating in the black in the water fund for the past several years. But when you go and look at why are we operating in the black, it's because of all the impact fees that we've been getting. And we're not going to continue to get these impact fees in the same amount. So I'm concerned that while we've been operating in the black, we won't always be in the black. But that's what's kept us in the black, are the impact fees. So we need to figure out. $25 is,
Can I just say something?
you may,
City of Hurricane water rate 1717 base rate, Tokerville 55, Leeds 40, Springdale 1960, Rockville 22, Washington City 1817. If we have to up on 25, we will be like $80.
yes, basically,
$30 more than the most expensive.
I would look at, I would tell you that don't go up to a base rate, once they're, oftentimes they'll have a base rate and a tier.
No, I know that. I'm just saying our base rate would have to come up 25, which would put us about $80. Just.
because right now our base rate is 55.
We're
So yeah, 25.
Tokerville's 55, they're the highest other than us with 55.
So they were single.
Tokerville 4 or 5 years ago did a major water project where they replaced about 3/4 of all their ductile steel lines because they were having breaks constantly. They had not been adequately reserving depreciation for maintenance of that, so they had to go out and borrow the money from the state, and the state went and analyzed their income and revenue and said, you gotta bump your rates, and that's where that's why Tokerville did that, but
That's where we're at now. That's
their
where
water lines, their breaks, their efficiency and their system is like fantastic, very easy.
So one of the things that, so Rod Mills called and told me that he estimated that the operating and maintenance expenses for the new water tank would probably be $2,000 a year. So therefore, he said right now, he looked at the budget, what we put in the budget for this next year for operating and maintenance expenses for the water tank, and he said we had put in 18,000 for our present water tanks for operating and maintenance, and he said, just bump that up to 20. So we'll just increase it by 2. So I'm going, okay, if our loan repayment is 54,000 and the operating main expenses annual is 2, then we're talking $56,000. And $56,000, if you divide it up among our users, the number of users in town, you're nowhere near $25.
But are we, and Leroy would probably have the best answer to this, are we fully funding the depreciation of our meaning our distribution lines and our tanks? Because that was one thing that the state told Tokerville too, it's like, hey, we're not gonna go lend you a whole bunch of money at 0 interest or give you a bunch of money and lend the other half to you at 0 interest. If all you're gonna do is replace your system and then not properly be collecting enough revenue to set it aside for replacement as its useful life wears out, and that's what depreciation is. And, you know, so they had to do a complete analysis to make sure that they were 100% fully funded. And I guess I tell you that, Mayor, because when you do a simple math analysis like that, you say, oh, we should be able to kill that, but how we analyzed, when they're coming up with a development, are they factoring in more in depreciation expenses for our system?
See, this is what Ron Mills was wondering is what have we, but his thing, he was arguing that we should remove depreciation from and to figure it out what it should be, but you're saying that they told Tokerville the depreciation has to be included.
It does.
Okay.
We have nearly $1 million
In your
related to depreciation in our water department.
And I'm trying to find the thing where, I'm trying to find the language in here.
And I see what we're putting aside annually, I can see that in 2022 and 2021. I just don't know if there's been a complete how recent was our analysis when we determined how much we should be setting aside.
There's been no analysis done.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah, we just been putting $35,000 away every year. And, you know, we have all these old water lines that cost.
Yeah.
That probably would take 3 times what we got in there.
Okay, so if you look at page 9 of this letter, that should be in your package, June 23rd letter from the DEQ. Look at page 9, number 18. This is the other thing that they said we needed to fund and where they're coming up with $25. Water systems applying for federal financial assistance for improvements to capital assets related to water infrastructure shall commit to adopt a capital asset management plan. The asset management plan shall be submitted to the division for review and approval prior to loan closing. Oh, you know what? This is not the part I wanted. I'm looking for the part.
Right there, that plan that you just read about.
Yeah,
That's gonna be the analysis on how we maintain our system.
okay,
This is our plan, this is how much we think present day cost is to replace our entire system right now. This is how far we're into its useful life, and this is how much money we need to be setting aside annually for depreciation, so that when those times come, and this, you know, this thing might need to be replaced, you know, 10 years from now, this one 30 years from now, that they do all that in a plan. That's how, and the state wants to see it, because they're gonna give you a good deal, they're gonna give you money, and if you get a cheap loan, they wanna make sure that you're operating your system.
These loans typically limited on, when they pay that. Like if the town
No.
made extra revenue, wanted to pay that down to drop.
Well, it,
so go to page.
on the loan portion, on the bond portion of it, bond purchasers, they probably want a guarantee a certain period of time where there is a defeasance penalty or a prepayment penalty. But I don't think that's usually longer than, like, on a 20-year bond, you might see a 5-year defeasance or something like that. And maybe like that.
So if you guys go to page 5, number 3, this is what I was talking about at the time. Page 5, number 3, at the time of the adoption of the bond resolution, the recipient shall have passed an ordinance or resolution establishing reasonable water use rates and collection enforcement remedies, taking into account many factors, including including the need to have sufficient revenue income for all outstanding water system debts, operation and maintenance costs, and any reserve funds. And in this letter, and I am looking for it, and I cannot find it, there is the new requirement for the capital asset replacement reserve fund that we are required to also fund, and this is where they're coming up with the $25.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find where,
might justify there's such discrepancy between your simple math
and what they're wanting. Because this capitalization, this reserve fund is supposed to be 5%. Here it is, it's on page 2. 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph down on page 2. As a condition of this loan, the board will require the recipient to establish a capital facilities replacement reserve account. Deposits to that account shall be made at least annually in the amount of 5% of the recipient's annual drinking water system budget, including depreciation, Rod Mills, and must continue until the bonds are redeemed. Failure to maintain the reserve account will constitute a technical default on the bonds and may result in penalties being assessed. So I think that's where they're coming up with their $25 as they're telling us what we have to raise our rates.
Carl. Did. He did a good job.
Did what with their,
The analysis of the rate analysis calculation and this combines the maintenance and reserve analysis for their water system.
so initially we were going to do this resolution today. Then the bond attorney calls and says, let's put this off a month. You guys need to figure out your water rate. And then I figured today, I'm like, I think we need to put it off at least another month because we've got to run these numbers and figure out what we're.
Someone's got to do the analysis.
We've got to have the analysis.
$35 is going to impact our residents.
A lot.
Substantially.
So what we were what Gene and Leroy and I were talking about was we need to do split it up and have more paid by commercial businesses, the commercial water rates, the people that pay commercial as opposed to residential. And so one of the things that Leroy was gonna ask you, Crystal, was to run something to tell us how many of our water customers are residential and how many customers are commercial. So that we can, we don't have to know that today. I know you could have gotten it easier. I'm just telling you, we didn't have to have
So
it.
what
today.
other options are there as far as moving?
I get it for you tomorrow.
More commercial development.
No, we're stuck on the idea that this is only the rate. Sometimes you can move money around if there's a larger down payment, if there's other things that we do with town money to offset that, to bring it back down to, because it's far from being reasonable if it's $80 for a residential unit, or $30 from every other town in the area. That's dang high. So I guess I'd like to know what other things can we do with this loan as far as is there more money we can put this down payment, are there other funds that we can move in such a way that it wouldn't impact the residents to that degree? And commercial is not going to cover it. What's that?
I think that's what Rod was suggesting. is to move the money around. Just like you
I
were
don't know, I don't
suggesting.
know anything about this stuff, I just know where that's something I'm choking on heavily. Even if we put it on commercial, there's not enough commercial in this town to cover that.
Well, you could propose a maintenance and a replacement plan that has a phased in depreciation every year, that if you're only charging 50% of depreciation, but that means on the back end, you're gonna have to, people are gonna have to pay 150% of depreciation. And all it is, it's just keeps the can down the road type thing, and I think that's a politically weak way of doing things with councils, to try to make them soften it to them right now, because people get angry when they really have to step up and pay the piper.
I'm just saying, is there something we can do as far as the loan itself
You don't take out the loan.
I was gonna say,
We don't build
we don't build the water tank,
Yeah.
we don't build the water tank, we don't take the loan, so I mean, that's what's gonna happen, if we can't raise the rates.
Not an old community, and we have some retiree communities and all on stay.
Yes,
And we bump that water rate to
We don't have-
$5.
We don't have a community that's right now heavily driven commercially,
Right.
where the concept of moving rates and upping commercial rates to cover expenses works even in Springdale, it works better than it works here. So I don't know if that is completely the answer on how to.
I don't think there's enough commercial in town to offset the cost. That's what,
Even though like restaurants, big users of water.
But we only have.
I'm not saying we should go. Look at
Our one
that.
shut down, we had 3 and 1 shut down, so.
so we'll get the analysis done by the engineer and see. Although I'm gonna tell him he can't take back out depreciation, because they clear the depreciation as included.
Right.
And,
I'm quite sure they're considering that $25 of depreciation of the new tank.
I don't know,
Because that'd be part of the whole water system, that we'd have to depreciate it out to be able to replace.
So
Yeah.
ultimate last case scenario, Paul, so you said it, don't do the loan, what happens with our current tank? What's the life expectancy? If you don't. do
Well,
this?
It's not that, it's the.
it's not the life expectancy of the whole tank. It's just
It's also.
pressure.
Ability to pressurize.
Is that what stop us cold is what happens?
That doesn't mean there might not be better options in with it on. I think that if it gets too steep, you know,
Well, that's a decision we'll have to make. How critical is the tank now, and can we create ways to save for that expense down the road?
Right.
They might want to redo our capital facilities plan and up our impact.
Yeah,
And see how much in impact fees we can collect towards that cost, and maybe set that tank construction date, maybe 8 years off in the planning horizon. I don't know how, you know what I'm saying, to see what we can,
Maybe it's more feasible in 10 years or.
but that's going all new development, and we just don't. That very true of what Mayor is saying there, bond purchasers are anything from a bank to insurance companies who need to invest a bunch of their reserves and stuff like that. But they're smart and sophisticated, and they know that impact fees come and go with the economy. User rates are much more fixed. That's why they want to see a stream of income that they can, you know, so that incentivizes them to purchase your bond.
yeah, that's what I assumed, everything is back as a user rate backing, and so we want to make sure that you back that sufficient and you get a high rating on the bonds.
within our own, I mean, I don't know anything about this stuff. I really don't got all the money, but within our own reserves as a town, is there something that we can do to put that? That's kind of what I was asking for. Is there, can we put more towards the tank with the loan?
So what you're saying is sort of apply that down through payment of the general fund.
I'm just asking what's available. I don't know anything about, like I said, where our money sits or anything. I know we have reserves, but I'm just saying, would that be something?
Well, and what that comes with is a side effect. If you take money out of the general fund, you gotta cut elsewhere because you're using that to fund someplace else.
Okay, I'm going to follow up with this person at DWQ who wrote the letter. I'm rereading what she said, and she talked about how they had made an error in calculating the loan repayment. And then she says, water rate increase. Michael and I reevaluated the water rate increase and gradually the water rates need to be increased by $25.
Gradually.
Gradually. What does gradually?
So that
How long
she's
is the
saying-
time period described?
Is she saying with the life of the loan, by the end of the loan, it needs to be up to 25?
Well, they had previously, the first time they told us we needed to raise rates when in the conference call, They said you need to raise your rates by $18. And by the end of the loan, you needed to have raised your rates by $35. And then they said, we've made an error, and now it just says they need to gradually be increased by almost $25.
That
So-
18 to 35 sounds like you're coming up.
That's what I need to find out. I'm gonna go back and call her and say, what exactly is gradually? Well, they were very clear when they told us 18 now, work your way up to 35. I can't believe they're gonna say, oh, we've made a mistake and you can go down to $10 now and up to 24. I'm going to ask you. What?
What type of schedule?
Yeah, they don't give us that. And they didn't tell me that in that first conversation. So I will call her tomorrow and ask what gradually is.
That would be a little easier to stomach, but it's.
Still, it's still gonna be a high.
It's going to increase up to a lot more later.
So we ultimately are going to be deciding, are we going forward with the water tank or not?
I think we should find out, first get the number pinned down first, and then second, if we're still choking on it, get an actual evaluation of how much it's needed, like somebody can come in and evaluate an engineer can evaluate the lines and all the rest of that, and say, yeah, you really need this, or you can move this down.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to know.
That's- That is exactly, that's what Pro-Value Engineering did.
I'm sorry, what was it you said?
I say first, let's find out what the actual rate is, what it's gonna cost.
Okay,
If
yeah.
we're still finding it hard to choke, then we ought to have somebody like Pro-Value come in, look at the
They
system.
inventory every piece of Tokerville's water system, down to each line, they gave them numbers, and they went back and researched when those lines were put in, and they put different lines in different categories of useful life, and when certain things would need to be replaced, and, I mean, they went through that entire process, and I was quite impressed with it, but, I mean, it helped very clearly understand how much they needed to fund for their depreciation, and what the rates needed to be, so they could service the debt that they were going to be borrowing for to do this big project, plus they had also had another water bond debt obligation that had about 5 years left on it. And Carl did a fantastic job, but let me just tell you something, that analysis, he didn't come up with that in a week or.
I was gonna say, I'm sure.
That took him
Months.
probably a couple, 2-3 months.
Yeah, well, we figured we've got, since they said we have to get both the bid process and all the town stuff done in order to get the money released, and Rod Mills said it will take 6 months to get the bid process ready to go. I'm like, then we have 6 months. Because if that's his deadline, and that has to be achieved in order to get the money, we've got these 2 tracks, they both need to end at the same time, near the same time, so that they.
One of the things that I proposed
We've got 6 months.
in this agreement, each, in the master service agreement with Ensign, is that we have the ability to terminate, for a couple of reasons. One of the things I added is that we did not have the appropriate funding or ability to service funding. And because they wanted to charge a penalty.
For,
If we terminate, like, if we engage them to do all the design for the water tank. And it was a $40,000 design project. And we wanted to scuttle that, without cause. Meaning that something that they weren't doing, if they were not performing, then that could be for cause. But if it was without cause, they wanted 30% of that contract regardless,
Just-
above and beyond whatever work they had done.
now you're saying Insight, you mean Galloway, because Galloway is who we contracted with on the water tank. Insign is just doing stuff for the town where we have
Yeah, that's
conflict of
right.
interest.
Okay,
Okay, so you're saying Galloway,
no, I'm saying is that.
Insight.
Is there, whatever we're having Ensign do, helping us with this water tank.
They're not helping us with the water tank. Galloway is the
They're the third.
third party review.
Okay.
Yeah.
We signed we authorized me to sign a contract with Galloway.
But that's still on the water tank, Gene.
What
They're-
is?
They're still reviewing the water tank.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's what he's talking
Well,
about.
okay.
All I'm saying to you is that if we decide, at some point in time, we're gonna have to decide financially if it's feasible and palatable and political to build a water.
Exactly.
And if not, we need to cut bait with Galloway and with, you know, and say, nope, we're mothballing this, or we're going for.
Okay. That's to me,
Until then, we're spending money if they're designing it right now.
that's why I wanted us to start talking about this right now, was because ultimately, we're gonna have to decide if we go through with this or not.
I do want
That's
to
really
say
where it's
this, you know, the town has built the west water tank to benefit that end of town. The east end of town needs help. I mean, there definitely does, and I'm a recipient of that. And as much as I love a shiny new button, I don't want to sell a kid and get it. If it's gonna cost us so much that we lose our principal to gain our interest, I think we need to re-examine. So I'm with you.
$18
What's that?
Oh, well, yeah, when they even said raise the rates 18, I was like, what? And then they sent the letter saying 25, I'm like, oh my goodness, that's almost that's a deal breaker.
But what we have to know is what effect of not doing it is and how long.
All we have to do is set a public hearing. We've got our survey right there.
That's where the company come in.
If you raise it even $1.
If you raise it $1, these people come and live.
I've never
Wait,
been so much on the same
say,
page with Paul.
$5, you have a public hearing on that? Whoa.
You've got to count for their. I don't mind doing the hard work and charging it if it's critical for life safety and not reason, but that's what we need to do.
Yes.
I think that's when we decided not to do it, what
What the.
impacts are, what like the tank is,
We need to know
the
what.
pressure, the life of it, do we?
And
We
that's-
really need to just benefit.
What about raising water usage instead of water rate?
That's the same thing.
You mean reducing water usage? So that's how you could possibly deal with capacity. We don't have enough capacity in existing.
Reduce use.
If we decide that we don't have the ability or we won't, politically or whatever, build the second water tank because we can't afford yoking the residents with that additional expense, then one thing that the council probably needs to look at is reducing
Base rate coverage.
Conservation.
base rate coverage. Get less water
Okay,
for.
Oh, yeah,
for the
yeah,
fee
yeah.
that you're paying.
well, that's like the Water Conservancy District that
It's
wanted
like-
their goals to go to
$50
point
per
seven.
lots. Now that wants to serve about that.
I'm saying, I'm kind of the same thing, but I'm saying you still have your 15,000 gallons, but instead of paying $1 for every 1,000, you're paying $1.50 or $1 or.
Well, I think the base
What I'm
rate
saying to you is,
is too much.
we
I think the
propose-
base amount of gallons, I think is.
Mayor, one of the things you need to do is, I know that Carl Rasmussen was working with DEQ. When he was putting together the proposal, the water rate increase proposal and the analysis, or he was sending drafts to DEQ for giving feedback. What she's asking is there a way, they have to approve our plan. They have to acknowledge that we raise our rates accordingly sufficient to service our debt and to pay proper depreciation for our system, so that we can replace it, once they get it all, you know. But what she's saying is maybe it doesn't have to be a complete increase in base rate. If we could do base, a small increase in base, go from 55 to 65, and then up the tier for additional usage. Because that does motivate conservation.
It does.
But those bigger users, those ones that just don't care and they're using, they're just gonna end up paying more than our normal average that stay under those 15,000
Well,
gallons.
that's relevant though, too, with a large family, so a large family is gonna use more of them, so it doesn't just hit.
I know,
It just doesn't hit
There's
them.
even excess over a large
I
family.
know, I
Well,
know.
what I know, I'm just saying, it is
Trust
something.
me, I do watch everyone, I know.
Of course, we could just up the water rates $25, and I hear there's some of the homes in Mexico really cheap, so.
So we're all gonna run through the border.
Well, I know where there's some homes in Arizona that you just can't get water. Oh, real cheap. And you haul the water in the truck, and all of them haul the water in the truck.
Oh, yeah, go out by Fredonia in the summer. days.
Okay, so I will call these people tomorrow and I will call this lady tomorrow and ask her what exactly the word gradually.
Yeah, and say.
What's the definition of
We
gradual?
engage engineers to do a water rate increase analysis and a proper, to put together the plan, the maintenance and replacement. plan
Yeah, this
that
is
you're
all-
gonna require.
This is
And
all
they-
Cal.
Do you guys have resources there that they can be bouncing drafts off your analysis? So that
And
we know that if they put the plan in front of us and we approve it, you're not gonna then X-nay it because everything has to be approved.
because one of the things that here's one of the things that they explained, during this meeting, that we had this conference call I had last week. That they won't put the money into the escrow account until both tracks have come together, which would have brought estimates to be 6 months. In that 6-month period, the engineering firm's gonna be doing all sorts of work and sending us bills that we're gonna be paying out of our $400,000 contribution. Because that's how we're gonna pay their bills that they incur up to the time that the money goes into escrow. So I don't want to be wasting a lot of this $400,000 on stuff that, I mean, some of this we
I
have
agree.
to do.
You might
Some of this
have
we have
a
to do,
really nice.
but I'm gonna be really
Water
careful.
tank that doesn't build.
Yeah.
Fragrance.
Right, I'm not gonna have that $400,000 account totally get drained by an engineer doing this, and all this stuff, and then we say, "Hey, we get it."
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful, but some stuff has to be done. So I just wanted you guys to be aware of it. Okay,
I had one comment, it has nothing to do, it has to do with the water tank, but, you know, we have 2 water tanks in town, we have an old one up on the hill that we had to reline,
Mhm.
I think 2 years ago. And the people that lived here in town were not really well to do, but they were kind of farsighted and knew this town would grow. And so they suffered and stepped up to the mark and paid to have the their West water tank put in. And I think that the residents here in town need to be able, including myself, need to be, think about the people that might live here in the future. And we need to do the same thing that, these people here did for us to have that tank on the west side, or we wouldn't be here, we wouldn't have the ability to have our houses built.
okay,
And so I think, you know, monetarily, we can look at it, maybe we can ease it with the analysis that you're gonna have done. Maybe 25 is too much. But maybe it's not, but I think as a town council, we need to look in the future and not think, you know, 5 years from now, we should have done that then. And even though it costs more. And I think we have an obligation to the town as their representatives to do what we feel is the best. Even though it might cause yelling at us and not being reelected. You know,
But I would like.
and so, you know, that's just the second thought that I want to put out there.
But with
And I understand what you're saying, but we need to think about our responsibility.
we need good data is what I'm saying.
we need to what?
We need good data.
Yeah, I'm not arguing about that, I'm just putting another thought out there.
Well, so you're saying we have to do, we should be willing to do the hard thing, so when we have the public hearing on raising these water rates that much money, and the people come in and are just ready to tar and feather us out of town, that we go ahead and vote for it anyway, if that's what needs to be done.
If that's what needs to be done, and we've done our financial analysis, and we have the facts.
But to back us up.
Does that financial analysis include increasing in the number of users, which affects the money?
They have not talked about that.
They have not done that, they have not increased that, I would assume.
But an analysis, someone like Provide Engineering will look at that and say,
There's a growth rate.
Yeah, here's growth rate, and so we recognize that revenue is going to increase.
Go up. Okay,
And that's probably why they said a gradual increase in it, because there would be that growth rate. And that's what you'll find out in your phone
in
call.
my phone call.
And I think that this is such a critical thing that the town council might have a special meeting once you get the information.
To talk about it. Yeah, we can't, I think with what it's gonna take, I don't think just doing a month, 1 month meeting and 1 month meeting, but we can talk about it at some of the work meetings, so that might happen.
Or you might have a special work meeting on this subject.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so I had this last thing on the agenda, but we can put that off. It's not something that needs to be done right away. This was updating chapter 56, the master plan overlay, to bring in the elements of the development review committee that we had just put in place.
It's just changing the words.
It's just, yeah, it's just adding in, the development review committee will do this, or the development review committee will do that.
That's the front page. There's quite a bit of change on this.
The backside, well, but that's still the same stuff we're talking about changing to say the development review committee is the one that's going to be doing this. No, because the front side is not even chapter 56, the front side is chapter 20, our new development review committee. Adding in master plan overlay as. I wasn't sure if we needed to do that or not, but I felt maybe it was safer to add master plan overlay as one of the applicable land use applications in chapter 20.
And I think it is, but I think the DRC has authority over, and the question is when they kick in, because they have authority over all site plans, commercial plans,
Right,
and authority dedication of roads. At what point in the process does it kick in was my problem.
okay.
When I looked at it.
Okay, because Gene and I kind of talked about it a little bit, he said, well, if it's got this commercial site plans, that, this would be included, and I said, yeah, but somebody can make, I just want it clear that it's included.
We probably should amend it to make it clearer, because the question I have when I read all that, how do you, where does it kick in that master plan process? Because there's a point it should kick in, and we want to make sure it kicks in at the right stage, instead of somebody coming in and says, oh, that doesn't kick in there.
Okay,
Yeah,
so should we put this, I'm willing to put this off for a month for us to look at it, because I don't even have it on the agenda for us to vote to send to the planning commission or anything like that. So we can look at it next month, I can put it on the agenda for us to decide. Yeah, well, I know, that's why I was looking at the clock going, anytime I'm ready to put this all over to the next month.
So.
But if you have something to say, go ahead.
Look at chapter 56. 5604 resolves freedom.
Yes,
Nothing happens until 5606.
correct.
And that's when the rubber hits the road, because that's when they pay their fees, that's when they have to be the owners of the property, all that. So my only concern is 5604, I don't think should be convening this large body of people that are having to come up and travel for something that might not even take place. I think that.
And is that what you were
More
thinking?
simple. That rework is not.
I haven't thought through where it went in the process, because it said commercial site plans, and it didn't seem like it had occurred at that pre-meeting, occurred after the pre-meeting. But we wanted to make sure that we knew when that did.
So you're doing the same thing.
I'm thinking without specifying exactly when.
Okay, so I just want us to go back and look at
Is
this
there any
here.
problem just sending it to planning and zoning and having them discuss it? And that
Well,
will,
if you haven't read 56 yet to understand all the different levels, then I'd rather wait and not talk about that until we've all had a chance to.
But that's a pretty convoluted process.
Yes, it's it's just not something we can easily say, oh, well, we'll just let planning and zoning do that.
no, well, They send a recommendation to us.
Right, I agree, you can maybe send your changes down to them and let them play around with it and send it back up to us.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
It does, that is a change to our land management code, and any amendment to our land management code has to have a recommendation from the planning commission after the public
Yes, I understand all that.
That's what I'm saying, is let's not delay, submittal for another month, let's give it to them. And.
Delay what's the middle? This?
That, they make their discussion, because then we can see what their discussion is
And what they're gonna say.
and respond appropriately when it comes here.
Okay.
I just look at it, we can send it.
I'll get it.
Where it is.
So don't wait another month, let it go ahead and send it over to them. Okay.
That was what we thought.
I thought we would be here half an hour talking about this.
Yeah.
All right, so. All right, guys.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
I.
You didn't even let me say all in favor, you're so excited. Okay, Jean did it.
I'll bring us all together. Jim, you're gonna have your flower.
Okay.
Like flower?